It always seemed to happen right around the first really good snowstorm of the year, and today it was snowing like the dickens. I stared at the gigantic flakes as they came twirling down from the heavens and prayed that today would finally be the day. My anticipation was so great that the 5-minute bus ride home from school seemed to last for an eternity. My face pressed hard against the school bus window, causing it to steam up over and over again. I strained to see if the flag on the mailbox was still up. Nope, it was down. The mail had arrived. My heart pounded, and I felt as if I were going to burst. When the bus doors finally opened, I was the first one out. I dashed down the street, reaching the drab gray mailbox in a matter of seconds. I paused for a moment before opening the mailbox up and said a silent prayer. Sometimes I wonder if God remembers all those silly little prayers of my youth. In each heartfelt oration, promises were made that I would never keep. Don't get me wrong, I never intended to deceive the Almighty. My heart was in the right place. I just had a really hard time keeping up on my end of the bargain once God had come through with his. Jerking open the mailbox, my eyes nearly popped out of their sockets as I saw the very treasure I had been anticipating for weeks. Although it came wrapped in plain brown packaging, even today I remember the unearthly glow that emanated from inside that mailbox. I swallowed hard in a vain attempt to suppress my unmeasurable joy. The Christmas catalog, the Sears wish book, had finally arrived. Even though hours and hours would be spent greedily ogling the various items contained within that magical book, the first few hours were the most critical and the most dangerous. As I quietly entered the house and tiptoed toward my bedroom, I knew that if I were to be seen by the enemy, my sister Valerie, there was a chance that Mom might make me share the darn thing. I could see it now, the two of us sitting on the couch. I would want to look at all the cool new superhero toys, and she would want to look at the dolls and other girl crap like that. If I didn't let her, she would cry, and who knows what she'd say. She'd say something like I'd been mean to her and threaten that if she told that she would rue the day. Valerie knew how to pull all of my parents' strings, and I, for some unknown reason, was decidedly less skilled in the string-pulling department. So you can see why, as far as I was concerned, sharing that catalog, well, it was something that I just simply couldn't do. As I climbed up the stairs just a few feet away from my bedroom, Valerie sprang from out of nowhere. "What do you got?" she asked, spying the plain brown package. "Nothing," I said as I darted into my room and quickly shut the door. For one brief second, victory was mine, or so I thought. I breathed a sigh of relief as I leaned my back against the bedroom door. I don't know why I thought that I had really fooled Val. I had never been able to deceive her in the past, but I snickered just a little bit as I imagined spending the first hours leafing through that hallowed book alone, circling those items that I deemed worthy of my consideration as Christmas gifts. I should have realized that genetically I was unable to fool my sister, but then again, I had always been something of a sap. "Hey Mom, David's got the Christmas catalog and he said I can't look." Her scream was a work of art, peppered with the occasional sob and laced with a few tears. Even I felt sorry for her. At that moment, I knew I was done for. Any attempt that I might make to share my side of the story would be for naught, as I was a rank amateur and Valerie, younger than me by a full 10 months, was truly the artist. "Oh, I hate this," said my mother, sticking her head in my doorway. "Every year you two fight over that darn catalog. Well, this year is going to be different. You both are going to have to share if you want to look at it. Otherwise, I'm just going to cancel Christmas." I gasped. Cancel Christmas? People shouldn't even be allowed to joke about such things. Aside from one very special Saturday morning each fall when all of the new cartoons premiered, Christmas was the best day of the year. It was a day to be cherished. It was the day that followed the night no child could sleep through. It was the day we honored the birth of a very special man, Santa Claus. If I had been smart, I would have simply given the catalog to my sister. Here you go. A wiser man, recognizing that sharing with Val really meant staring forever at the 2 or 3 pages that contained Malibu Ken, Fun to Dress Barbie, Go to School Stacy, Pajama Party PJ, and of course Roller Skating Skipper, would have realized the irony and saved his breath. No doubt about it, if I had been clever, I would have suddenly declared in my most altruistic tone that I could wait. That the joy of a sibling was far more important than any personal gratification derived from being the first to scan the pages of the new catalog. Of course, such a declaration would have to be strategically made within earshot of either parent, or if luck would have it, both. My folks, upon hearing my earnest expression of unselfishness and love, would, of course, with the wisdom of Solomon, decide that I deserved to look at the catalog first. Of course, I simply had never been that cunning. Instead, I gave crying my best shot, but my sobs fell on unsympathetic ears. You kids can share, or I will take that darn thing and just throw it away, said my mother. Again, I gasped. Surely, Mom could not be so cold. Didn't she understand? By the way she was acting, you would have thought she was going to have to pay for the toys that my sister and I would ever so carefully select from the catalog. I glanced over at Valerie, hoping that she had been equally terrified by my mom's threat, but no, my sister had this look of incredible smugness. Victory was hers, she knew it, and she was reveling in it. It had become apparent even to me that Valerie had won that first round, but I was determined to have the last laugh. For the next week I schemed and plotted my revenge, which changed pretty much on a day-to-day basis, but always involved the kidnapping and subsequent burning of one of Valerie's favorite paper dolls, something called Wendy What You Gonna Wear. In between the hours and hours of exhaustive deliberation required by any finely conceived revenge plan, I did find some time to peruse the Christmas catalog and prepare the list which I would entrust with my mother to deliver to Santa Claus. As I had been an extremely fine young lad that year, I decided that my list would include 1 or 2 more items that I might have included otherwise. The list included a request for a fully posable Batman action figure, the accompanying Bat Cave, and a Batmobile, which the small print in the catalog insisted made the Batman figure way more fun and exciting to play with. I also requested a typewriter. Even though this particular typewriter was found in the toy section of the catalog, from what I could tell this was the real thing and a necessity for any bright child. The clincher, of course, could be again found in the small print, which pointed out that it came with a genuine QWERTY keyboard, much like typewriters used in the office. I was unsure what QWERTY meant, although I knew that if it were good enough for thousands of journalists and office secretaries, well, it was probably good enough for me. The final item was the most treasured of all my requests, a cherry red Astro Flyer snow sled. I could just picture myself on Christmas morning racing down through the snow while others watched with a feeling of what could only be described as a mixture of pride and envy. So there you have it. With list fully prepared and in hand, I began the long march down to the basement where my mom was doing the laundry. As I approached the laundry room, I glanced one last time at my list, making sure that I hadn't forgotten anything important. Had I included all items desired? Yes. Had I informed Santa of my general good behavior throughout the year? Yes. Had I promised him milk and cookies if he saw fit to stop by this year? Yes. Had I remembered to sign the list in recognizable handwriting? Yes. With that done, I folded the list into quarters and opened the laundry room door. "Do you want me to help you with that?" I asked, noticing that she was almost done folding clothes, and even if Mom accepted my offer, it wouldn't require much of an effort on my part. Besides, it was always a good idea to get on the side of the individual who serves as a courier to St. Nick. "Well, thank you, David," Mom said suspiciously. That is a sweet offer, but I am almost done here. Why don't you go vacuum the basement floor instead? That would be a really big help. Crap, I thought. Mom was such a hard person to trick. But if it helped get the list to Santa quicker, I didn't have a problem. Sure, I said as nonchalantly as possible. Oh, by the way, I added as if I'd just remembered, would you make sure that Santa gets this list? Mom took the list from me and gave me a look that, although I've seen many times since then, I still don't know what it means. She said. You sure have asked for an awful lot from Santa this year. I was a little puzzled by Mom's apparent concern over the length of my list. What was the big deal anyway, I thought. It's not like she's going to have to foot the bill. I've been pretty good this year, so I thought I'd ask Santa for a couple of extra things, I replied, not quite sure why I was defending the size of my request to her. Mom smiled as she folded the list and handed it back to me. 2 toys, she said, quite matter-of-factly. That's all that we can afford this year. What do you mean we? I asked. Well, said Mom. Well, she said again, apparently at a loss for words. What do you mean by we? I asked again, aware that I probably wasn't going to like her response. Suddenly Mom's eyes lit up. She said, you see, Santa sends us a bill. What? I couldn't believe my ears. All this time that I had thought Kris Kringle, a.k.a. Santa Claus, had been possibly the most generous man to ever set foot in the Sundstrom home, and now, out of the blue, I'm told that once the gifts are delivered, he sends my parents a bill? A freaking bill? I was in such a state of shock by this revelation, and my imagination was running wild, out of control. I could see it all now. 2 or 3 days after Christmas, the whole family's in the living room watching Mod Squad when someone knocks on the door as Dad starts to open it. 3 incredibly muscular elves push their way in and start kicking Dad in the kneecaps, screaming, "Where's the money?" over and over in their high-pitched voices. David, are you all right? Mom asked, bringing me back to reality. But what about the poor people? I asked. Surely Santa wouldn't send a bill to the poor people, right? Of course not. Santa only sends a bill to those who can afford it, Mom said, apparently quite pleased with the way the conversation had turned out. Suddenly I began to feel dizzy. Stuffing the list in my pocket, I dashed out of the laundry room. Disillusioned, I headed for the only place a man could get his thoughts together, a place where no one would dare to bother you, a sanctuary, a heaven, the bathroom. Locking the door behind me, the realization that I had been deceived, misled, and pretty much lied to hit me like a ton of bricks. There was no Santa Claus. Mom and Dad had bought every single gift that I had attributed to the kindness of St. Nick. Strangely, I wasn't angry, even though Mom had, for all intents, murdered Santa Claus on that day. The revelation helped me to realize how much my parents loved me and how much they were willing to sacrifice for their children. Unlocking the door, I raced downstairs and gave my mom a big hug. I love you, Mom, I said, hoping that she'd forgotten that she'd asked me to vacuum the basement floor. I love you, John David, she said in a tone that assured me her words were true. I smiled. Today had suddenly taken on significance as one of the monumental days in my life. It was truly a red-letter day, a day I would look back on as a turning point as I continued my journey towards adulthood. Suddenly, I realized my much-plotted but never executed revenge against Valerie had taken a very different turn. I knew something that, when divulged, would ruin her whole week. Giggling, I raced upstairs, trying hard to conceal my wicked grin. Years later, as I think back to these Christmas memories, I cherish them. And even though Valerie usually emerged the victor from our little wars, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. In fact, now that life has forced that adulthood upon me, there are times when I would give anything to return to the innocent, good-natured sibling rivalry that existed between my sister and myself. But childhood vanishes, and along with its disappearance, we are forced to come to terms with our own mortality and the fragileness of life that, well, what makes it so special, so worth living. I miss you, Val. Hey, I hope everybody enjoyed this story. If you stuck around for the 15 minutes that it took for me to share it with you. And I hope everybody has a very happy and joyous holiday season.